Well, for more, I'm joined from Ramallah in the West Bank by the Palestinian Initiative leader, Mustapha Barghouti. Mr. Barghouti, thank you for joining me. It's very hard when you look at the scale of what has happened here not to believe that this is a reprehensible terrorist attack by a bunch of medieval barbarians. When I say that, what is your response?
First of all, let me say that I'm really sorry about what happened to Deborah's family. I'm glad they are safe. If I can contribute to relieving their suffering, I am ready to do so. That's one side of the issue. But what I would like you to know, and I want the audience to know, is that what they described is exactly what happened to many Palestinian families only 3 months ago, when Israeli illegal settlers attacked their houses and burned them. These were American Palestinians from the village of Tormusaiya and Sinjil and Huwara, and they almost faced the same story. Their houses burned, their cars burned by fanatic Israeli illegal settlers. In this situation, I'm a medical doctor, as you know, and I learned that the best treatment of a patient is not only to look at the symptoms, but at the causes of the problem. And while we are talking, Gaza now is under bombardment. Gaza is taken, actually, Netanyahu is taking Gaza, the whole of Gaza, 2.2 million people as a hostage, cutting water, cutting electricity, cutting medicines, cutting food from them. The acts of collective punishment against 2.2 million Palestinians is not the right response. And this will lead to more problems. But the cause problem of what we see here is 56 years of military Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. The fact that Netanyahu blocked every possibility for a peaceful resolution of this conflict, he blocked Oslo Agreement, he fought against it, he aggravated people against Yitzhak Rabin, who was assassinated after signing Oslo Agreement. And the result is what we see today, a protracted problem. The only way out of this situation, so that no Palestinian or Israeli would suffer, is to end the Israeli illegal occupation, end the system of apartheid. And I'm not saying that by my own words. These are the words of Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, and even the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem, end the system of apartheid that Palestinians are subjected to.
You know, I watched you, if I may just jump in there, I watched you do an interview with an old colleague of mine, Fareed Zakari at CNN, and you said many similar things, and it was a thoughtful interview, it was conducted respectfully. But you said one thing there which I wanted to challenge you on now, which is you said that in these attacks, Hamas did not target civilians. I mean, that is clearly completely untrue. They deliberately targeted civilians. Would you like to retract that statement?
No, I said that Hamas started by attacking military stations, and obviously there were attacks on civilians, which we don't accept and we don't agree with, as much as we don't agree now with what the Israeli airstrikes are doing to Gaza, striking civilian population, killing so far 700 people, and I am sure by tomorrow morning it will be 2,000 people killed.
But just to clarify, just to clarify, you do now accept they were targeting civilians, because you didn't accept that on CNN.
No, I said I didn't have the full information. I know now that some civilians were killed, and this is unacceptable.
I mean, it's not just some civilians. I mean, 260 mainly young people. Well, let me just say something. 260 mainly young people attending a peaceful music festival were machine gunned, to their death by terrorists flying in, paragliding in with machine guns. I mean, it is hard to imagine a worse atrocity. Do you unreservedly condemn that act of terrorism?
I do not accept killing any civilian, but would you tell me that the Israeli soldiers that have killed today 140 Palestinian children and 105 Palestinian women are also terrorists?
I think that the Israeli people are entitled to defend themselves against what happened in the last 48 hours. I'm not for a moment defending everything the Israeli government's done in the last few decades. Of course, I've always, where it's been justified, criticised what they've been doing. But on this occasion, I'm not interested in playing whataboutery with you. I'm simply asking,
I'm simply asking you,
do you unreservedly condemn the slaughter of 260 innocent people?
I condemn any killing of any civilian, whether Palestinian or Israeli. But you have to accept that if Israel has the right to defend itself, Palestinians also must have the same right of being able to defend themselves.
But nobody has a right to commit acts of terrorism.
But
You'd agree with that, right?
Would you say, no, I am asking, would you say that we also have the right to defend ourselves as human beings?
I think that there has been an oppression of the Palestinian people in Gaza for way too long. I think that there needs to be a peace settlement. We finally got there. We finally got there in Northern Ireland. But I don't understand how anybody with even half a brain would think the way to get a peace settlement is to kill nearly 1,000 mostly innocent Israelis who have nothing to do with the conflict, many of whom were attending a music festival, and get machine gunned to pieces. There is no way. There is no way that kind of attack is ever going to forge peace, is there?
Absolutely, but let's look forward. Now, at this very moment, there are hostages. There are Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. There are Israeli prisoners in Gaza. The best step forward is the following: immediate exchange of prisoners, immediate stop of all the fighting, immediate ceasefire, and opening the road for what you have said. Something like what happened in Ireland, ending the Israeli illegal occupation, allowing Palestinians finally to be free from oppression and to live side by side. I personally wouldn't mind if we could live side by side in two-state solution. But if Israel kills the two-states option, I think the only solution is that we live together in one country, in peaceful.
Can I ask you? I know you're not
in one democratic state.
Okay, I know you're not a member.
Where we both have equal rights.
Yeah.
And we both are entitled to the same equal human rights. I think that's the only way out of this situation. And we cannot say. I mean, I could list to you now so many atrocities. Let me tell you one thing from my own personal experience. Once in 1996, I was treating an injured person. I was a medical person in my white coat, and an Israeli sniper saw me and shot me twice. I still carry 35 shrapnels in my back, but I don't keep talking about that. I think the way out of this is to stop all forms of violence, to stop all forms of conflict, and to allow a peaceful resolution.
But here's the thing.
And that peaceful,
Mustafa,
here's the thing. Let me
just respond to that. You know, when I watched your interview at CNN, and I hear you again tonight, you sound a reasonable man who wants a reasonable solution to this, right? I'm not going to disrespect you by saying otherwise. The problem is Hamas are not reasonable people. They're not like you. They just want to kill as many Jews as they can possibly kill. They have no interest in the kind of resolution that you're talking about. And Hamas now has a stranglehold over the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian people. As long as they have that stranglehold with their concept of how this plays out, there is no chance of the settlement you're talking about. Do you accept that?
May I respond?
Yeah.
I know Hamas people. I've negotiated with them so many times. I've debated with them many times about the value and power of nonviolent resistance. And I tell you, they are ready to accept two-state solution. They are ready to accept that. What they are not ready to accept is that we Palestinians will repeat what the PLO leadership did, recognizing Israel as a state, while Israel still refuses to recognize our right as a state. You know, one of the main problems that Netanyahu created, and I think this man will be definitely put in front of many inquiries about what happened in the last 2 days or 3 days. But one of the worst things he did was to stand up in the United Nations only 2 weeks ago, carrying the map of Israel, including annexing the occupied West Bank, annexing the occupied Gaza Strip, annexing the occupied East Jerusalem, as well as the Golan Heights, which Israel officially annexed. This map by itself drove everybody crazy. That meant that he and his government, with people like Smotrich, who doesn't hide away calling himself a fascist homophobe, they say that we should fill the West Bank with settlers and settlements so that Palestinians would lose all hopes of a state of their own.
Okay.
And then they will have one of three choices: either to immigrate, or accept a life of subjugation to the Israelis or die. Such statement by the second most important minister in the Israeli government does not lead to peace. And that's
well,
what
on that point, Mr.
Yes.
McGill, I would agree with you. I think some of the more hardline right-wing headbangers, frankly, that Netanyahu's put into his cabinet are coming out with incendiary rhetoric before this, which has been deeply unhelpful. So on that, I would agree with you. I've got to leave it there, but thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
It's important to hear that side, and I appreciate it.